Morbid Angel with Kingdoms, Disdained, and quite frankly, folks, this might be one of the most anticipated albums of the decade for heavy metal. And yeah, that might seem like a really brash statement, but consider a couple of things and understand that this is being anticipated for reasons that are not traditionally associated with a most anticipated album. Illud Divinium Insanus, it came out in 2011, and it apparently gave me a career. Thanks for that, I guess. You definitely didn't know what you had coming. But this is also the time where we collectively, as one, not just me, but many folks within the heavy metal collective said, the fuck is that to this record? Really unsure of what the whole plot of this was, or, really what they were hoping to accomplish. But here we are, 6.5 years later. They have poked their head out once again. Morbid Angel hasn't said, we're here and we still make music, and the rest of us are like, oh good, what does it sound like? And so 2017, Kingdoms Disdained, and you go into this with a little bit of apprehension, fearing the worst, but hoping subtly for the best. So, reality is now here. It is no longer anticipation. It is no longer hyperbole. It is now time for us to scope out what this album is all about. What did Morbid Angel do? 2 steps back or 1 step forward? So, whenever you first look at this, the first thing you may look at is the track listing. It's 11 tracks. You may not get a chance to look at track times unless you play this on an electronic device or anything like that, which is kind of lame, but whenever you do this, you realize that there's no track that's over 6 minutes, and most of them hover around sort of the same area, around 4 to 5.5 minutes. Now, that might not seem like a lot to most of you, however, this is kind of important considering Illud Divinium Insanus sort of jilted around and jumped around a good bit, which kind of gave it this off-kilter feel, which it already was possessing, thanks to the music that was within it. So those are 2 wrongs that didn't necessarily make a right, so this already maybe feels like it's going to at least be a little bit more of a smooth sailing experience. But then you actually get into Piles of Little Arms, which is definitely an interesting title to start off this record. In fact, there's a lot of just kind of weird, strange titles on this whenever you take a look at it, such as DEAD, For No Monster, and The Fall of Idols. Wait a minute, wasn't that a... Oh wait, that was Ideals. That was the All That Remains record. One of the last good ones. But Piles of Little Arms starts off, and immediately you are granted with a little bit of a reprieve of all of your apprehension, all of your dread, because you hear something that sounds like death metal immediately, right out of the gate, and something that has a very pulverizing sequence to it, something that feels very much like the Morbid Angel that you remembered. A Morbid Angel that was only heard in subtle hints on Illud Divinium Insanus, and really was not heard on a full-length album since Heretic more than 10 years ago. So obviously, there's a little bit of relief to instantly be presented there. But of course, there was some relief with Illud Divinium Insanus as well. Maybe the whole thing's just a ruse. Then you listen to Dead, and the same thing happens. Then you listen to Garden of Disdain, and the same thing happens. And in fact, the death metal on here only continues to get more and more gruff, more and more uncompromising. So instead of kind of going in reverse and kind of tuning things down, we instead have a band that's making it dirtier, that's making it even more gruff and giving this exterior the showcase of a monster. And it's great based off of that. For a lot of people, this is like getting your favorite band back, or at least a band that you respected. It's like seeing what a band, an old dog that maybe lost its way, or a sheep that went down toward, town and became sheep in the big city or something, them coming back to the fold and saying, hey, I saw some really weird stuff over there, but I'm still the same person that I am. That's what it feels like. It feels like this band has said with these opening tracks, hey, remember that band that we were with Heretic and everything before that? We're still that band. We just kind of got off course a little bit. So what about specifics? What makes this feel like it is a positive experience as opposed to Illud Divinium Insanus' negative experience? First of all, we had mentioned how the sound wasn't as jilted in several different directions, and how the songs themselves felt like they had a little bit more focus, a little bit more balance, and certainly have a little bit more to offer. That's not totally true. That's not a complete true statement. It's just that whenever you have a style such as death metal that's being done by Morbid Angel, they're not a band that necessarily needs to go overly technical, with the alone exception of their bass and their percussive side. That's the side that always seems to have a lot of top-notch work placed on it, and that's based around some of the legendary folks that have come through the band and have performed with them. Whenever it comes to the riffing, it's all about aggression, it's all about speed, it's all about maintaining a destructive feel, which they're able to do, either that or a uncompromising feeling of dread, which is also possible. So if you had any questions about whether or not this was going to deviate into, you know, whatever the heck you wanted to call Illud Divinium Insanus, well, no, instead you're going to get something that sounds like a goddamn war drum on declaring new law, Secret Hell. Yeah, it literally sounds like you just got transformed to the realm of the Aztecs, and the new laws that are actually being put in forward are actually going to lead to your death. It's like a ritualistic ceremony that is being sparked by very evil intentions, or perhaps a very evil presence. And that's a very nice touch. It's something that does add a little bit of variety. Now, if there is a complaint about this record, is that variety does come at a bit of a premium. It's something where you do have to dig a little bit further in order to find it. Instead, they're aiming to be uncompromising and unparalleled on this disc, so they're trying to aim to really reminisce a bit and deliver a disc that has that powerful death metal classico sound that has caused Morbid Angel to be considered one of the big four of the American wave of the genre. They really want to revisit sort of that past glory that a lot of people clamored for after Illud Divinium Insanus left them feeling very much malnourished based off of that. So they do seem to hover on this quite a bit, and so it does cause variety to feel like it is at that premium. But still, it's such a nice sound to hear once again, to hear that chug that Morbid Angel has been really producing for nearly 3 decades. In fact, more than 3 decades, it feels like, or at least nearly, that kind of just makes you forget about all those things, especially during the first playthrough. Whenever you get into some subsequent playthroughs, that's whenever some of the problems start to alert themselves and show themselves a little bit further. If you only listen to this album once, and the last thing that you remember from the band is, well, that other album, then this is going to seem like amazing. This is going to seem like God, Jesus, Satan, everybody came together, had like a nice little council, you know, ate some turkey and started shaking hands, and then all collectively blessed their powers on Morbid Angel to ensure that they didn't make Illud Divinium Insanus Part 2. That's what it's going to sound like. It's going to sound like amazingness. But with the subsequent listens, that's whenever the blinders start to come off, and you start to realize that with all that being nice, and with all of that apprehension being led to satisfaction, this is still an album that is just, you know, pretty good. It's not going to blow your head off. It's not going to be an album of the year contender, but instead it's a strong release that makes you feel like Morbid Angel is now back on the death metal path. And whether or not that's a good thing is truly within the ear of the listener. This is an album that I would probably give a 19 out of 30. It's not too bad. Like I said, it's not going to set your world on fire, but still, it's nice to hear this side of Morbid Angel once again. And it's nice to hear an album that feels a lot more focused and sort of tethered into what Morbid Angel's strengths really have been throughout the entirety of their career. Really, at this point, we can almost forget about Illud Divinium Insanus. Call it a mulligan or something like that. It's a classic blunder. It's one that certainly will list among metal fans as one of the worst albums ever, but a blunder just the same, just a MacGuffin, because Morbid Angel has gone back to this, you know, classico sound. They have decided to continue forward and do what it is that they do best, which is steamroll over bodies with death metal. But I want to know what you think. I know that all of you out there that have watched this video have listened to Kingdom's Disdained. Tell me what you think about it. And if you haven't heard this album yet, considering, you know, it just dropped, maybe, depending on when you're viewing this, you can actually pick it up over at Amazon through coverkillernation. There is a link in the description box below that's going to take you to a page of stuff that I recommend, stuff that I like. And this album is on that list. So if you go over there, you can pick it up right there via that page, which is super duper neat. And I thank Amazon very much for that. And of course, it's a way that's also supporting the channel a little bit. So, hey, consider doing that if you intend on picking up this record. Thanks again, everybody. We have 2 more album reviews left to talk about this year, which is Queensryche and the Faceless. Not Queensryche, Operation Mindcrime. You know, that Jeff Tate band. So I hope that you'll come back and talk with me about them as well. So, see ya.